Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Industrial Island interview. My guest today has a 35-year career in the music industry as a musician, songwriter, and producer, and you may know him from many groundbreaking bands like Skinny Puppy, Cyberaktif, and Delerium. You can pick up his new album, Mechanical Soul, which is available via download. So thank you, audience, for allowing us access to your ears, and let me welcome the award-winning and talented Mr. Bill Leeb of Line Assembly. Bill, how are you?
Greetings. Pretty good, I guess. Apart from trying to maybe contain my mind as to what am I going to do for the rest of this year if I can't go anywhere, it's becoming more of a challenge. But and just having done a whole year like that, so I guess. And the good thing is Rhys has moved back to Vancouver here, from California. So we spend more time making more noise and more music, and that's definitely going to help ease and pass the time as we wait and see how this year will go.
You bring up the quarantine and everything. You guys are supposed to be, correct me if I'm wrong, going out on tour with KMFDM and Ministry starting in March or April. So with everything going on in the world, do you really kind of feel wheels are going to start rolling around that time frame, considering all the kind of restrictions that we're under as of today?
Not anymore. Like last year when it got postponed twice, the early summer and the October one, and then now we've been hearing from the Ministry's camp and the promoters that it looks more like it's going to be in October, an October venture this year. But, honestly, I'm just thinking I don't know if anybody's going to do it this year. Now that I'm hearing big bands like The Weeknd, or just today confirmed they're going to play their first show in Vancouver 2022, makes me think that, and that's an arena tour, that I think I'd be very surprised if anything happens this year. Mind you, if everybody in Canada and America is vaccinated by the end of the summer, and they lift the restrictions, but that would still be sweet. I mean, I guess then October, I'd be willing to go out. So it'll be interesting to see how well everything is organized and how well it all happens, and if there will be rules and regulations. If you need a vaccination card before you get into a concert and all these kind of things. So if you're an anti-vaxxer, you might not be ever going to a concert again,
Exactly.
Which is kind of funny, right? So I don't know, I think I'm with everybody else, but I think definitely next year. And the other interesting thing, I was listening to this, an alternative radio station in Vancouver called The Peak, and all these young people were calling in going, well, we're all booking vacations for 2022, 2-3 weeks in Bali and Mexico and here and there. And so I'm thinking by the middle of this summer, if you want to even go anywhere early next year, you got to start booking something now, because I think there's going to be such pandemonium of people wanting to get out that the world's going to explode with madness and people just wanting to get out again. So we could be in for an interesting year next year as well. So that's all I know. I'm fingers crossed though, because I was really looking forward to that tour, so we'll see.
For you guys, I'm sure you're in Canada and you have all these restrictions because Trudeau has a lot of restrictions on you guys for incoming and outgoing, I assume, and there's no artist visas that are going to be employed here to be able to allow you to leave the country and return, I guess, to do a tour. So you're starting to get rumblings from the Ministry camp that this is possibly not going to be rolling on
they're
time.
Hoping for October. They're hoping for October, but I don't even think it's so much. I don't think they're so much in charge either. I think it's going to be just more of the American and the Canadian government, and
right.
How many people will get vaccinated by the end of the summer, because that's what they're guaranteeing here.
Right. It's like a numbers game.
Yeah, in America too. So and I think even when after that happens, they're probably going to put some new laws and restrictions into, gatherings of, if you're going to have 20 to 40,000 people in one place. I'm sure then, there's going to be some new rule changes. So anyways, I think we're early on right now, but I'm sure by late spring, early summer, we'll have a probably really good idea. I think everybody will, as to what's going to happen,
Right.
Guaranteed next year will be a happening year for everybody. So, and apparently we're seeing a lot of people, because they can't go anywhere, they've saved up all this money. So they just want to go out and go on a shopping spree next year and go traveling and make up for the last 2 years. So
I guess
it could be crazy.
So I guess the bright side to this for you would be make sure there's plenty of Frontline Assembly merch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking, or like at least people are going to be dying to go see live bands again. I think it's kind of ironic. Before this thing happened, I think there was a lot of people complaining that there's too much music, too much this, that concert tickets were like becoming astronomical, and they were kind of, if you want to see older bands, $500, $600, $700 a pop, but I think after 2 years of all this shutdown, I think people will probably be a little more appreciative of just being able to go out and see something and enjoy live music again. So, there's that good side of it as well, I think, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's going to be definitely a rush to head out the door and see whoever hits the road first. And I'm really interested to see how they're going to implement some safety precautions as well, because of course everyone getting vaccinated is only one part of the deal, but I think there's going to be some level of some social distancing and mask wearing at venues for at least probably, I don't know, realistically, maybe next 2 years, because I've heard a lot of scientific professionals saying 2022 is very likely that we're still going to be masking up to an extent. So do you think that's going to be a little weird kind of playing venues where it's going to be social distanced and masked up and not as full as it normally would have been pre-pandemic era?
Well, just to kind of quickly wrap it up, I think it's just going to be, I think, I don't think the world will ever go back to the normal that we had before. And I think everybody's getting used to the new ways of living and things you have to do. And, wearing masks. I mean, wearing masks in Asia has been pretty commonplace for a long time because the air quality is even so bad. But I think even here, even after the whole thing calms down, I think people that are, vulnerable are still
going to
probably wear masks, because it'll be sociably acceptable here and people won't look at you like a freak. And so I think things are just going to be a little bit different from now on anyways, so I guess just expect a norm and you'll be okay. And I think, I think that's just the way the world is changing,
It almost sort of romantically fits in with the dystopian vibe of...
There you go, right?
You know what I mean?
Survival of the fittest, wear a mask.
Yep. I also want to bring up another thing that's really kind of interesting about what's happening in the community, which is the Me Too movement, I guess, in some respect. And that tour also had its kind of unfortunate sort of unveiling of something very, if I don't want to make it a negative thing, but if as a listener of the show and what the deal is, then what the deal is. But, and I'm sure Bill, as well, but, there was some issues with that tour coming out of the gate, and then it didn't get helped by some comments that Lucia made from KMFDM. It just kind of added fuel to the fire.
Yeah.
This community. This community
I was
is
kind of gobsmacked by that. Yeah, because I don't know any of Al's people.
Right.
And so it's kind of like what's going on right now with Marilyn Manson and Trent and Rachel Wood. He got dropped by his label the day before yesterday, so it was kind of like big news.
Yep. Yep.
So kind of the same deal, right?
Yeah, it's the same deal. We're dealing with a culture now that is very, very sensitive, but sensitive for the right reasons, I guess. And those of us in the industry I'm sure we've all had our fair share and known people who were not the greatest people in this community. And I think for a long time, we've all, as artists and as musicians and as label people and everything, have steered clear of those people, or we've worked with them reluctantly because at the end of the day, it's just get it done. But we've gotten to a point now where it really is guilty by association. And do you think that there's going to be if this tour does start rolling, knowing that the individual is not in the ministry camp anymore, but still the damage was done to an extent, is still an issue. Plus, the comments that were made from the KMFDM camp as well, and they're going to be on that tour. Do you feel like it's going to be a little bit of a weird, awkward vibe possibly on that, because some of the audience might be a little not sure if they want to see you and they want to see everybody else, but they're also kind of very active and very vocal about the injustices that are going on in the industry and in the culture in general?
Well,
not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, I think the one thing I kind of forgot about it because it's been so long. It's been like we're into our second year now, and
I brought this up to Chris Connolly also, and he was very he hasn't spoken about it since the whole incident, and I got him to speak on it, and it was really amazing what he said, and I think this culture has always been about righting wrongs and being, and being forward thinking in some respect. So, I think there's going to be some uncomfortableness too, but,
well, for sure. I get with Chris, Chris was part of ministry, part of the Cox,
Yep.
Him and Al had, they had a falling out with the book. Those guys have huge history, right?
Right.
I'm so far like left field, like me and Rhys, I don't know Al. I don't know the whole camp. We were never part of, the Wax Tracks phenomena when all those guys, we were in Vancouver, so for, obviously, that, I don't know any of those guys, so I'm definitely not going to comment on that. Obviously, I think, everybody should be respected and treated with equal rights, and we should all be nice to each other. So, but yeah, having gone on tour, that definitely met people through the years where you kind of go like, wow, where did this person come from? You know what I mean? So there's lots of crazy stories, so,
I want to do the more formal beginning here, and I'm sure you've done interviews over and over, and you keep getting the same question that starts every interview, and the question basically is, tell us a little bit about Frontline Assembly for those who don't know. But I kind of want to turn it on its head a little bit and ask you the reasons why Frontline Assembly began, and some of the creative challenges that you were trying to conquer that, in your opinion, inspired you to begin Frontline Assembly.
Well, I think first of all, it was probably just being a big fan of music in the early days and of live, like rock bands and the whole deal. And then I think for us, when the whole sort of punk movement started, and the new wave and technology, the first time me and Rhys looked at a sampler and we went, this thing is unlimited. You can be a rock band, an orchestra, you can do anything you want with this thing. And it just made us just think of the possibilities are unlimited. And that's how, we didn't feel like we had to be, like super singers or musicians. We just had to be a little bit of everything and be technology minded and see how creative we could get with all this stuff. And I think, in the early days, when we first got, with Skinny Puppy as well, it was just kind of like, and there was no alternative here, it was either you were back into the hair rock bands or so it was kind of like, when that whole era of music started and hair and fashion and everything, it just seemed really dangerous and exciting. And like I said, we just got this gear and we just started noodling with it and it was fun and there was no boundaries, and it also, when that whole, when indie labels started, you didn't need a manager, you didn't need a big rock contract. You could just make your own album and put it out there, and it just it ignited, I think, a whole new world of music. As to where we are now with everything. So it's probably just a little bit of everything, and even just meeting. The craziest thing is, meeting the other guys in Skinny Puppy. It was all just by chance, so it, we, this girl, Debbie, she introduced me to Kevin because Kevin drove by her in the Stanley Park, which is a huge park here. He pulled up beside them and hung out a bag of pot and said, "Hey, you guys want to smoke some weed?" and Debbie said, "Okay, sure." And her cousin, and they pulled over, and then then I met Debbie at a nightclub, and she knew these guys, and I don't think it could ever happen again, the way our whole group of people got together and, did what we did. And, but I think
that was
meeting Rhys too, like Rhys came into worked with the black market, which was kind of like the only sort of fashion clothing store. All the fashions came from England, and I would go in there and play my tapes and music, and he came up and said, "Hey," he had a drum machine, said, "Hey, aren't you in Skinny Puppy?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And we started talking, and, it was kind of like, there was no internet, there was no cell phones, there was kind of like, you had to actually go out and talk to people and meet people and procure yourself. And where I think, so I think that had a lot to do too with the community being a base, there was no, YouTube, or there was nothing like that. So, it was kind of like, you either had to go see a band and meet the people and talk to them, or otherwise you just, you weren't going to know anything about them. So
yeah.
I think all of that stuff together got us to where, and a little bit of luck and a little bit of this. And, I don't know if it could ever happen again, but it happened that one time,
I would argue it's probably happens differently now because of technology.
Right.
But it's really interesting that you say, because you're exactly, I'm old enough to remember pre-internet days as well, when everybody just your social media was basically hanging out at local record shops and seeing your other other friends play, and reading zines. All those kind of things were social media at the time. So I would assume that things happen differently nowadays, but I really found it also interesting that you were talking about samplers being a thing for you that really excited you, because I just did an interview with Raymond Watts and Chris Connolly, and they both said exactly the same thing. And I feel like there's like a documentary in that somewhere. But
right.
What sampler did you get introduced to first, number one? And the second question
go ahead.
Okay. And the second question is, were there any inspirational things that you sort of heard about with using samplers that's why it got you excited? Or was it just because it was a box that was limitless in its possibilities, which is ironic because now you look back at samplers now in today's technology and it's infinitely unlimited, as opposed to then, which was a different kind of limitation.
Yeah, well, first of all, the samplers, we had the Akai's were the best samplers. There was the S900, there was the S950, and the granddaddy of them was the S1000. And it was all about memory, right?
Right.
The more memory you had, the more you could do with it. And those were the three big ones. And then the other one was the emulator, like Rhys bought an emulator, I think. Depeche Mode used one. And, the ironically thing, not to get too technical, but all those samplers, when you sample drums with them, as the emulator, Depeche Mode, still like using the drum sounds on it. they kind of alter the sound in their own electronic way by going through all the all the electronics, and they have a sound, and so and I mean, drum machines were like like the 909 and 707, this XVX90, and the Linn drum. They're technically samplers too. I mean, they're drum machines, and that's the other thing. Like there never used to be a drum machine, so you could go home and have a sampler and a drum machine, and you could create a beat and throw down a groove, and boom, you had something. So I think that was also key. So those were the big ones. And I think for me, like I was actually DJing a bit here in Vancouver too. With my old girlfriend, we had Wednesday nights, and my other she also worked at Odyssey Imports, which was the best import store. And like I think one of the first things I heard that was really interesting was Eric B. Rakim Paid in Full, and they sampled Oprah Haza.
Mm-hmm.
And like back then nobody was clearing samples, right?
Right.
And when I heard that, I went like, yeah, that's incredible. Like all these little things that were sampled from radio and this and that. Cabaret Voltaire was another one,
Mm-hmm.
but they actually used tape, and they were huge influences me. Well, so I think those kind of things is what brought that into the spectrum for me as far as but yeah, the Akais and the emulators, those were the big ones. I mean, there was also, I'm sure there was a few other ones as well, but those were our mainstay. They're sitting in my garage because now, with Pro Tools, they make those things like archaic, right?
Yeah, but there's some kind of sweetness to the electronics and the solder and the warmth.
They just don't have the memory
things.
space, though, right? Like with Pro Tools now, I mean, you've got unlimited memory.
Space.
It's like, yeah, it's like buying a computer now to like the first Macs that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like my ex has the first one that was ever made, and you look at it and you go, how did we get from that to this? And how did people see there was a possibility in that? You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. When you look back at all all the old technology, it is phenomenal to go, wow, look at where we came from.
And then the ironic thing about music still is, and along comes a person with an acoustic guitar and a great voice and lays down a song and needs no technology, just sheer mood and talent, and can still reach as far. So I guess that's the amazing thing about music. I think there's really no limit as to which way you go with it, as long as it's something you're passionate about and you want to create something new or interesting. There's always a way, there's no either that way or this way, or it's like it's a pretty cool thing in itself, the creating music, as far as like, there is no limit really,
Right. So I want to discuss some of the early years of your life. I assume you've always been interested in music in some respect, but you came from Austria to British Columbia at the age of 14, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
So a question for you is how was the adjustment fitting in at that age? Because a little bit of info about me, basically, I moved from New York City to Tennessee when I was 11 or 12 years old. So it was a really big culture shift. So I'm just interested to sort of understand the adjustment, how you had to deal with that. And has any of that adjustment formed who you are today as a musician and as a person? Just that identity searching at that age?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, most definitely. Because, like being raised in Vienna, it's such it's literally it's the city of Mozart and culture, and it's old and it doesn't change. When tourists come to Vienna, they want to see all the old. They don't want to see new. They're not interested in that. So like, I was basically raised in my parents put me in a convent because they couldn't look after me day to day because they had to work. So I would get dropped off at this old convent in the middle of Vienna, and it was run by nuns, and you would just stay there for usually for 2 weeks at a time, and then you get a visit or you get to go home one weekend, and it was literally to go to the school would be across the street. We would go in line, nuns in the back, nuns in the front, and then we would have choir session every day, and it was very religious. So we were all like
Wow.
choir boys, literally, and so we would have to do choir, sing every day after school, and then we all had to learn how to sort of play an instrument. And I was thrown a violin, and not that I was any good at it. I guess it's that young thing, but it was very religious, very musical, and very traditional. And I think by the time I came here, like, to me, Canada was like the Wild West, because think how old Vienna is. And
Yeah.
I come over here and it's just like, and of course I couldn't speak a word of English. So like I had to go to a new Canadian school and learn English. And yeah, it's like, I think when you're young, it's probably easy to adapt as well as when you're older, and, but it was definitely, and I think though, like having both cultures in me, like, I don't think, Skinny Puppy ever would have come from Vienna, but, like I think having both aspects, like, probably gave me a much broader look at music and, what I like, and a much more of an open mind. And so but I think having been influenced, being around that kind of music since I was young, definitely kept my interest and my idea span going. So yeah, it was quite a challenge, but I think I feel like a multifaceted person now because I have like a totally different background as well.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that because some people really do adapt very easily and some people have a tough time adapting, but at the same time there's a gift in that, in the fact that you get to see how the other side lives, and you learn a level of compassion and empathy for things that are going on. Because if you stay in one spot, you just tend to think that is the world. And when you move to another place or move often, you do get a more worldlier view and seem to be more of a person who can sort of navigate the world and listen and be more empathetic in some respect, more than a person who is stuck in the same community their entire life. I guess their world is that community. And
yeah, I mean, I'm convinced if I didn't come here, I don't think Line Assembly and Skinny Puppy and all that stuff ever would have been in front of me or made me go there, because like I said, Vienna's so traditional, and I probably would have been I don't know, I would have been a waiter who played violin in the orchestra part-time at night, and that would have been okay too, but
yeah.
I think coming over here, like it was, like I said, it felt like a new frontier, and the country wasn't even 100 years old, and so like it was like the Wild West, I mean, there was possibilities, and that's what I think my parents wanted to come here. They wanted a new shot and something new and try the outdoors and stuff, where Vienna is just kind of still cultured and very old fashioned, and if you're not really established, you're never going to get to the point.
There's definitely like a hierarchy, a classist hierarchy there with that. This is kind of a humorous question here. Early in your career, you started with Skinny Puppy and you credited yourself as Wilhelm Schroeder. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I just think it's funny because I'm not sure. Are you aware of the famous cinema thing that people do, which is they use the Wilhelm Scream, which is a scream that is kind of used in every context when someone is falling or something like that. And I just think that it's humorous that you use that name. And I'm wondering if you did that on purpose, if that was why that was, or is it just because of your name?
Well, my real name is Wilhelm, right?
Yeah, right.
So, but I think, because when we started Puppy, we all said, well, we got to have more interesting names, right?
Right.
So like, Kevin Crompton is 7 Key, and and Kevin Ogilvy is the, Nevek Ogre, because we found nicknames for each other. And like when we started off, like we had all these keyboards and they'd always be on the floor. And, like I had my hair really blonde then, and so like, we'd sit around, I'd sit on the floor tinkering away.
So it's it's a Peanuts reference.
Yeah, so that's where like mine came from, because
Nice.
Schroeder, he plays Beethoven, so it's got the Austrian thing and German, and got blonde hair, and so
that's brilliant.
So we, so that's where mine came from, right? And ogre got this because he never came out. So one day I said, "Don't be such an ogre," because he'd always stay home, right? And boom, there you have it. It's just like, but yeah, that's kind of where that came from. And then what was the other one? There was Schroeder. A guy named Schroeder was the first guy to have the official heart transplant in the world.
Uh-huh.
And we came up with that one. But you're saying there's also a Scream one?
Yeah, if you wanna like Google it, it's hysterical. Once you hear it, you'll go, oh, I know I've heard that a bunch of times. And once you hear it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. It's just like a filmmaker's gag that we all, because I also make films as well. It's something that you kind of Easter egg into a movie.
Really?
And it's in there. It's in everything. It's hysterical. So I was just kind of.
How do you Google it? What do you Google it?
Wilhelm Scream is how you Google it, and then it'll pop up. The first result will be exactly the Scream, and people use that, and they use it in Easter eggs. And I was just thinking, like, how cool would that be to sort of Easter egg that into a Line Assembly track at some point in the background?
The Wilhelm. It says here the Wilhelm Scream is a stock sound effect that has been used in a number of etc. since 1951.
Mm-hmm.
And wow, you've just enlightened me on the whole. And then there's the top 10 Wilhelm Screams.
Yeah, it's hysterical.
I can't believe it. Wow, this is very enlightening.
It's a rabbit hole. I was laughing because I'm thinking, oh my God, how cool would that be if I bring this up to him because his name's Wilhelm, and then he does that, and then at some point in a future release, there's like very faintly in the background a Wilhelm Scream, just because it's just carrying on the tradition, especially with your name. It fits perfectly. I was like, this would be great. It'd be like a little inside joke.
No. I mean, I've never. That's the great thing about life, right? It's like every day when you something new. That's definitely a new one for me.
Yeah, I'm honored to have introduced you to it. I appreciate it.
That's awesome. So do all filmmakers know that? Is that sort of like a?
Yeah, it's a running kind of joke that it's an homage for the most part, but it is also like sort of an filmmaker's inside joke kind of thing, like they just.
And where do you think that came from? Like just the concept of.
That's interesting. I'm not sure why anybody decided to do that, but for whatever reason, that Scream was in that film in the 50s. I think it was a Western. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure, but and from that point on, for whatever reason, it has constantly crept into pop culture in major motion pictures, and it's in there when there's a lot of
there's a whole lot of stuff on that in Wikipedia. Like wow,
it's there. Yeah, like I said, once you hear it and you familiarize yourself with it, you will then from that point on for the rest of your life go, there it is. Yeah. It's great.
I'll never be the same again now that you realize you just changed my life to some extent, right?
Oh, that's
pretty
awesome.
Crazy, man.
Oh, that's the memorable moment that I'm trying to have here. I'm so happy. Oh man, that's cool.
Wow.
So listen,
Thank you.
I wanted to. You're welcome. I wanted to get into talking about the new album, and I don't want to take any more of your time. I just want to wrap this up for you. But I have a couple of really interesting questions for you about the new record. The new record is called Mechanical Soul. It is coming out. Is it out already, or is it not? Because I've had it already for a while.
Yeah, it came out. No, it came out I think on January 15th.
Okay, all right, yeah, because I've had it for a while, and I've been loving it from the minute I got it. So anyway, talk about the new album and why the title Mechanical Soul.
I think that the title to me sort of I kept thinking of like how programmed we all are now. It's kind of like in every aspect, like people walking around looking at their phones, and I don't know what they're doing, but it's I think like everything you do, whether with health or banking or anything you do in life now, whether you have a computer or a laptop or a cell phone or everything is mechanized, and
Right.
everything is like, digital. And so it's kind of like, is there going to be, how much room is left for actual, just, again, humanity and face-to-face,
Organic conversation.
talking to somebody, like anything I call now, it's you get an answering service and you leave a thing, and then the only way people want to get back to you, they text you. To me, that's very mechanized.
Mm-hmm.
People don't even want to call you anymore because that means that's an emotion they don't want to have to deal with. So it's much easier to blow somebody off and say, I can't make it. I'm stuck here. Like,
right.
And how do you respond with like, are you going to waste a half an hour texting, asking why? Whereas if it was a phone call, then you could tell whether they were lying or not, or whether what they're doing, right?
Right.
The human voice, the emotion. So, but then I think it goes in all aspects of life. Anything you do, when you get in your car and Siri asks you, where do you want to go?
Right.
You're talking to some, you know what I mean? So I think everything we've come to that format, and I think even in music, like there's a lot of things now that are, with when they mix things with effects and stuff, that things are very mechanized, whether it's a audio tune, you can actually mess around with somebody's voice, even if they can't sing at all. To me, like, so, like in, a lot of images you see on Facebook now, you don't really know, are they doctored or is that real, like fake this? So I think all of that sort of implies the title to me as to, what can you believe, what can you not believe when you see something? Is it really true? Is it, or is it somebody's, messing with you? And do you need like a special app to now like go, okay, this is bullshit or this, so
right.
Things have gotten kind of complicated in that way. And, a lot of people take their cue from all these things, right?
Yep.
Or like bots, like I watched the show now, like if you want to, I didn't even know, you can actually buy bots, right?
Yep.
So if you want to be one of those people that influence other people, you can buy 150,000 bots and they'll all send fake messages. And I mean, that's kind of weird, right? I think, buying fake friends, buying robots to tell you that they like you, and other people going, wow, he's got 150,000 people that's following him. He must be really popular. I think it's kind of fucked up, pardon my language.
Yep,
But,
I agree.
I didn't even know, right?
I feel like I feel like the next Frontline Assembly album should be just called The Algorithm, and then basically the entire record is written by an app.
Yeah,
I think we're going to get to that point at some point.
And like, Christopher Walken says he's never owned a phone, he's never had a driver's license, he's never had anything like that. And I'm thinking, okay, but it's because of who you are. And I try to be that Renaissance guy too for a long time and refused to have a phone and refused to text. And, now it's like, you're standing in line, you get a ping on your phone, and I just feel like, am I just like everybody else now? It's like, but how can you can't avoid it, it's just like, so anyways, I think all that summarizes the title, and it's, you can take whatever you want from it, but I think it affects everybody in their own way,
Right. So are there some like lyrical contributions to that record that sort of tie that theme together in the album?
Yeah, like that song. Yeah. I think tracks like Alone, I think, I feel like a misguided missile, a target to be blown, a drone, I'm all alone, I go it alone, it's like, I just feel like it kind of isolates us all in their own way, because you just take your phone with you, you don't really need anything else. You've got everything there, ironically enough, at your fingertips as well. So what do you need? You don't need to go to the bank. You can do home line banking. You can do it. You can go and Google if you have a problem with your hand and or like an online doctor or whatever. So I just feel like we're just, a lot of people are becoming really isolated that way. And
exactly.
I like the human contact. Ironically enough, I like going to the bank or somewhere and you know somebody there and you talk to them, and I feel like there's some sort of human contact, I guess, unless you want to be an isolationist. But so, yeah, there's a lot of sort of references like that, I think, in their own way,
Yeah, yeah. I want to discuss. Just correct me if I'm wrong. Is this the second record, I believe, without Jeremy?
He there was 2 tracks on the last one that he was part of.
Okay.
But yeah,
So
yeah, this one is the first.
Is the first full without him contributing. So I want to talk about, before I wrap up here, I want to talk about a very important part of Frontline Assembly who has passed on some years ago. And it's Jeremy Inckle. And I want to discuss his contributions to Frontline Assembly and how his absence has changed Frontline creatively. And do you feel Jeremy's suggestions and contributions, his just general vibe of being part of Frontline, is still part of the core DNA of Frontline right now?
It's I guess, we would really need to, I think I need a lot of time to sort of really, put forth all that, that we've gone through with Jeremy and the whole band. But, it's kind of when I met, Jeremy for the first time, I think it was 12 years ago. He was working at when the video Blockbuster, remember those things?
Right. Oh, yes.
Where you could go and rent a video.
Yeah.
How old school is that, huh?
Yeah. Tell some of these younger kids about that stuff.
I know, right? They'll think you're grandpa, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, he had this. He was working at the counter. He had this bright blue hair, and he had a lot of hair, and he just stood out like holy fuck, And I went to take out a video thing, and he looked at my card and he went, "Hey, you're Bill Leeb from Skinny Puebla." And he started talking my ear off, and the lineup behind us was growing bigger and bigger. But ironically enough, he had a part-time job working with Chris Peterson. I'm sure you know who that is, right?
Yep.
And because me and Chris have a long history, and he was working at Chris and Kent's. They had a T-shirt printing shop, so one thing led to another, and then and then Jeremy also knew Jared, I guess, who was in Left Spine Down for a short time, and so between all of us, Chris, Jared, and Jeremy, and me, we created a whole new band because Rhys went and did his own own thing for a long time, being a producer with Fear Factory, and he was. Mm-hmm. He had a whole different agenda. So all of a sudden, I'm with all these guys and new guys, and Jared and Jeremy are 21 years old and have all this energy, and are all into new electronics and stuff. So we started this big journey. We put together 4 or 5 albums, and toured the world 4 or 5 times, and went to Russia 4 times together. A lot of firsts, and
right. So
it was we were a really tight, really great band. By the time we did the Skinny Puppy, Spy versus Spy, it was amazing. That was for everybody, so.
Yeah.
And then I think by the time we got to hit Echogenetics, I think we were really firing on all cylinders, all of us,
right.
Jared, Jeremy, and me, and Sasha, as far as contributing, and I think pushing electronics. I mean, some people got mad because it had a bit of a dubstep influence, but those guys, especially Jeremy, was really always into the whole Dead Mouse, Skrillex, anything mm-hmm. new, so that energy brought into an old timer like me was huge, and it was so invaluable, and there was so many amazing moments we had across the world. It's kind of hard to sort of put it all into a 5-minute thing to explain how.
Right.
How, but it kept the band going. So by the time, to his unfortunate demise, it's really weird now. I mean, me and Rhys were staring at each other going 30 years ago when we started this thing, it was just me and him. Mm-hmm. And here we are at the pearly gates again 30 years later, and everybody else has kind of fallen wayside or isn't with us anymore. And And here we are, and it's kind of weird, it's kind of strange, and like maybe that's the way it's supposed to be. So it's kind of ironic and odd at the same time that all that has happened, and so we have these memories, but we're kind of back at square one after this whole buildup and stuff, and so like I'll definitely miss all he was such an energetic person, and he just lived for music and would always bring ideas and things, and I think, like I thought after echogenetics and, even the two, I think we did War Mech and Air Mech,
mm-hmm.
The instrumentals, and
right.
I think there was just so much great stuff going on, and I thought, there could be that there was no limit as to doing some future things, but it all kind of ended pretty quick, with that whole thing. So
yeah,
it's been a full big giant circle, and I guess that's part of my life story. But what can you do except go on, right?
Yeah. No, I mean, and this record is a great record. I really enjoy it, and there is a feeling of that you're still out there doing a unique frontline assembly album that keeps pushing some envelopes and some boundaries there. So I think. Well,
I think it's kind of crazy because, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but like a lot of bands like Front 242 and that, they haven't put out a record in 15, 16 years, and people want to hear the hits and stuff, and I feel like in some way, like, I mean, as time goes by, if you're a band that's been around for a long time, if you're still putting out new music, a lot of young people now were like 3 years old when we released Caustic Grip, and so you're kind of like opening yourself up in good and bad way,
mm-hmm.
as far as those people don't relate to older guys. They want to just hear bands their own age, and do we really need to still try to put out music? We could just, like tour and play all our sort of older hits or, whatever we were known for. But I think for me and Rhys, it's always still like, we still like the process of making music, whether people love it or hate it, and we still really get off on that, and so that's what got us into it. So, that in that way, I think that's the important part for us, is just
right.
being able to be creative and doing it since this pandemic has been life-saving because, it just really takes your mind off of things. And
it's been a catharsis.
Because you think like, maybe we'll never tour again, who knows, maybe at the end of this year, maybe it won't be as they predicted either, so you just got to do something with your mind. And that definitely is a real medicine for us, to be able just to make some noise and laugh, and at the same time, share memories of the last 30 years. And, it's like, you kind of have to be there, so, but for us, it's important in that way,
Yeah. Even though Jeremy is no longer here and it's a sad parting, I think by him being in that and you having all of those successes and having all of those great releases, because of that creativity, I think it's still going to be part of your DNA. I mean, it seems like it in this new record. There's still very much that feeling there. You know what I mean? Like I definitely get it.
Yeah. I mean, I think like this one's again just me and Rhys being back to who we were and how we perceived everything, and we're like, I mean, we have a new Noise Unit album that's being mastered right now by this new techno hotshot in Europe, and we got a couple of really cool guest artists, which I don't want to give away. So like,
okay.
So yeah, we're like I said, we're just in the verge of starting a new Delerium album because we have time, and I've also been talking to Seven Key. We have a few little songs now we're kind of fiddling with. We're gonna do a Cyberaktif, I think, in the next while, and Rhys is gonna be also involved, and so it's like. Hey, when when it's raining out, you might as well do something and just keep it all going. And I think at this point we kind of, I think we've kind of did things that mean something, and so we'll. I guess as long as this pandemic is holding us down, I guess we'll just keep making noise.
Good. I'm looking forward to all of that. So make sure I get I get a copy of it beforehand. I definitely will do whatever I can to push it, and which I don't think it'll need my help. I mean, like if it's a new Cyberaktif coming out and new noise unit. I mean, I don't think it's gonna need very much help. It's just gonna be like awesome. I can't wait, and especially with a new Delerium. I mean, what got you guys to start doing that?
Well, Delerium's always been like ironic at the end of the day, like Delerium and Conjure One for Rhys. So I mean that stuff really, in that world really does the business.
Wow. Okay.
And I mean, I wouldn't go there, but we've had like a lot of success in that world.
Yes, of course. Yep.
And so like it's still at the end of the day, and it's always really nice to change moods. Like after pounding beats and trying to see like call the world what it is and stuff. It's nice to have a bit of. I think the Delerium part has always been that part of me growing up in Austria and the convent and stuff, and it's it's more spiritual and more atmospheric, and
it is the yin.
I love that kind of music as well,
Right. It is the yin to your yang or yang to your yin, whatever it is. Like it's.
I think you need both.
Yeah,
I think you need both as an artist. It's like I think like great painters. They once in a while they change colors and they have to, because just painting in black and white, it can get kind of boring too.
Yeah.
So, adding some color can put a whole new inspiration and identification to what you're trying to paint. And so I think in music, it's the same thing. Even guys like Tom York, I mean, he has so many side projects. I bet you can't even remember them all,
Do you take any of these? Do you do any extra things that are uncredited, such as like commercial or just cues for films or stuff like that? I mean, or would Delerium be just satisfying that end of your creativity?
Well, we've gotten a lot of licenses from Delerium.
Okay. Yeah.
Over the years, and I think Rhys has gotten a lot of stuff from Conjure One too. Like Tears from the Moon was a huge commercial for sparkling water in Romania. It was like one of the top things.
Right. Yep.
We have all these things we don't talk about, like we don't need to, but they're out there, and it's like I think Rhys has got a couple new tracks on that Cyberpunk video right now, which was like I think the biggest game release over the holidays. I think they shipped 8 million copies. I know there was problems with it, but so he has tracks in there, and it's called the radio station or something. So we're always
you're in there.
Yeah, we're finding ways. So it's like it. You don't always want to. There's no point in having to talk about it all always. But yeah, it's amazing how music finds its ways into things, and that always helps pay for other things. So we're constantly trying to find something new.
That's the name of the game. Whatever is the business end, you keep it rolling, so it gets you to do all the things that you really. I mean, that's kind of the same thing that James Cameron did with being a filmmaker. He made movies in order to fund his expeditions.
Yes,
so there you go.
Yeah, I mean that's like that's the thing with this tour too. Like the I versus Spy tour. Like even Kevin said, might have been the most fun tour Puppy's ever done. We did that with How Job and Youth Code and us, and every show was sold out. And then we did the tour with the Revolting Cocks. I think 2 years ago, I think, almost, like, and got to know Paul Barker really well. And that tour again, every show was pretty much sold out. So I was getting used. And then we did the one with the Crooks just before the pandemic, and same result in Europe. Every show was just full, and so like, and we thought like, the last 3 tours were so amazing, and then when this one came online, the KMFDM Ministry, and when they announced it, and most of the shows sold out within the first week, I was excited, and then the world came crashing down. So like, I'm still really hopeful and looking forward to that tour will get off the ground at one point, because I think that'll. Especially in America, I think that's going to be a really fun tour, and we'll bring everything together.
Right. I have 2 more questions, real quick, and then I'll let you go. Because you've been here for a long time, creating really great music, that you're seeing some of the new people coming out. Do you feel like you can see some of the influence from your early years in Skinny Puppy, or just your contribution in the early years sort of manifesting itself in the newer generation, as it were?
I think all of Europe sounds like Skinny Puppy.
Can I just say on a personal level, like when I was touring with Anesh, every band that opened for us was basically, your era of Skinny Puppy.
That's a Liam, one of the Oasis guys would say that.
Yeah.
It's like, every fucking band sounds like us,
Yeah.
I mean, is it any fucking wonder? I think, well, I do think a lot of, I think Skinny Puppy influenced a lot of that sound from just, early on, I think everything morphs into its own world. I think the whole future pop thing that came out of Europe, like a lot of the B&B Nation, that's kind of a different animal now,
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like rock and roll, let's look at it this way, like quickly, the roots to rock and roll are the blues. And then, from the blues, it turned into like Led Zeppelin and then turned into metal. And I think with electronica stuff, it's the same thing. There's just so many variants of it, but I think the roots are all the same. It's all, it is an electronic phenomenon, and it's done through digital machines and stuff. And at the end of the day, depending on, who throws their voice on it and how they manipulate it and stuff, I think it's all falls under an umbrella and morphs out into different ways. But I think definitely all that early stuff, definitely influenced a lot of the stuff, that's going around now, even though a lot of stuff now sounds different again,
Right.
And I think each generation wants to have their own bands and their own music and their own identification. Like, I think, and an artist like, Boy Harsher.
Right.
I mean, they have fans that have never heard of Frontline or Skinny Puppy. And like the last two concerts I saw before the pandemic, I went to Philadelphia with my ex, and we went and saw Massive Attack, and then we saw Boy Harsher the next night. So that was pretty cool, right?
Yeah.
The last two bands I saw, and like at the Boy Harsher concert, I saw like people there. Then they don't know anything about the industrial world or future pop, or it was and yet it was just a guy and a girl with some keyboards. It was very electronic and reminded me of what Chris and Cozy did 25, 30 years ago. So but I guess each generation has a huge gap and a huge difference, and everybody wants to identify with their own thing. So if you talk to those people, they might not think we were influencers, like but I guess it's all just music, and it makes the world go round, and everybody will and I'm sure the next generation will have its own spin on whatever it's been spinning now.
Yeah. Well,
maybe I'm getting a little too philosophical here, but I think that's kind of how the world works, and that's how art and that's how everything works. I mean, there's only so many colors on the palette, that you can paint a picture with. I mean, everybody might paint a different picture, but at the end of the day, we're all using,
the same
red, white, and blues and greens, right?
The same. You're using the same tools. It's just how you're manipulating them is the difference.
Yeah.
Well, Bill, listen, I really appreciate the entire talk here. It was fascinating. I was looking forward to this, and it definitely exceeded my expectations. We really covered some really fun, interesting stuff. I really hope that you get a chance to come back on the show with another record. And honestly, I'm really looking forward to sort of hearing in the faint background, now that I've enlightened you to this, Wilhelm Scream in the back of a future.
Like you changed my life.
Yeah.
I posted it, and then people are going on like, oh, so that's what that term is. I'm like, I'm hearing it like the next album is going to be totally dedicated to Wilhelm Scream. That's really messed up there.
I'm very excited. I'm very honored that I've done that for you. And like I said, I'm looking forward to hearing it in there, and I will so laugh crazy. So much, and right. I will love to have you on and discuss some more in the future. So thank you very much for having.
My pleasure. Well,
awesome.
Thank you so much, and it's been really nice talking to you. And I guess stay out of that snow, right?
Yeah, well, I shoveled it all up, so it's all done. So if at all possible, I'm just going to stay out of it unless my kids are sleigh riding in it. And then that's the enjoyment of the snow. The work part is not fun. That's the not fun part.
And then there's, and the craziest thing is like there's that story today. Is it out of Pennsylvania, wherever? Like where 3 people died because they had it was all about snow shoveling. They got into an argument.
Oh, probably, yeah.
Snow and who's driving? Yeah, and 3 people died from it. And I'm thinking, Jesus, like really?
Yep.
Over like, you know, whose snow is this? And don't throw your snow on my side. And I'm like, that's not really worth dying for, is it?
Yeah. Oh, look at this. Like I'm looking at your Facebook page. You did post about it, and people are already commenting about it.
I know, right? That's like I said, you changed my life, young man.
I'm gonna comment on here, and it'll be. I'm really looking forward to this interview coming out and attaching it to that post. It's gonna be great. I'm looking forward to it.
How weird that nobody's ever thrown that at me, because it seems like on here that's not the world's biggest secret, right?
It's a secret, but it's not a secret. That's the thing, it's
right.
it just is out there. It exists, and it's just
But if you know, but if you're in film, that wouldn't be an uncommon term, right?
No, it wouldn't. It wouldn't be. But if you're in film and you don't know the name of that thing, you will ask about it, because you will hear it so much that at some point it will make you go, what is that? Why does this keep showing up? And then you become part of the inside joke of it.
Because like even Toy Store or like whatever like has it on them. I mean, I'm like, Jesus, wow, maybe I should be getting a royalty or something, like, I don't know.
Let's see. It's possible. It could happen.
Oh my God, that's too funny. All right, my friend.
Bill, thank you so much.
All right, stay safe, and hopefully we'll chit chat again. All right.
Likewise, I will make sure that I text you or let you know when this interview comes out and everything, and do what you will. And I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks so much, man.
All right. Cheers.
Have a great night. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Yep. Everyone, that was Bill Leeb from Line Assembly. What a great conversation. I'm so honored that he came on the show. You can make sure that you download these episodes at industrialisland.nyc. You can also go to Facebook and Twitter. Twitter is Industrial ISL. Facebook and Instagram is Industrial Island. And make sure that you guys check out the new episodes, which are coming soon of the radio broadcast. But there are more interviews to come, so make sure you stay connected with Industrial Island Interviews. And thank you so much for giving me access to your ears. I am Michael J. Cadisquillo. Thank you.